Good evening, and welcome to another Chicago Coaches Corner Zoom podcast. Today we have an outstanding, distinguished group of Notre Dame alumni, and it's just a privilege to have them join us today. But before I introduce them, I want to introduce our Chicago Coaches Corner team, and I'll start with Mr. Sam McNabb. Sam was the founder and president of Cito Sports Enterprise. He was the creator and the host of the Chicago Blog Talk Radio and Zoom podcast. He was also the founder and president of the NFL Players Father Association. And we also know that he is also the dad of the NFL legend quarterback, Mr. Donovan McNabb. How you doing today, Sam?
Doing fantastic, and I'm so grateful and thankful for each of our guests actually coming on board with us and providing an opportunity for another great show. So let's get started.
Great. Our next team member is no other than Mr. Jesse Chick. Jesse is the former football coach at Simeon High School and has been there for 34 years. And in part of that time, he was also the head coach as well. He now serves as an administrator, was a former director of player personnel and chaplain at College of DuPage. He is a Hall of Fame coach. And so how are you doing today, Mr. Chick?
Fantastic. It's an honor and a pleasure to be amongst this great group of young men. And I tell you, I'm excited. I have my Notre Dame helmet on one side. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to make the play. Let's make the play, y'all. Let's get busy.
All right. And last but not least, my favorite team member, Mr. Kenneth Jennings. Kenneth is the founder and CEO of Gridiron Alliance. He is a motivational speaker, former high school football coach, and also a peer mentor. How you doing today, Kenneth?
I'm doing great, Coach. I'm glad to be here tonight, looking for a wonderful and blessing show where you get a chance to give a lot of information to the people that's here listening and get a chance to talk to some Hall of Famers and great Notre Dame players. Can't ask for much more than that.
Well, that's a good intro. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce one of our first Notre Dame alums, Mr. Tiim Brown. Tiim, two-time All-American, 1987 Heisman Trophy winner, selected in the first round by the Oakland Raiders in 1988, joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2004, nine-time Pro Bowl player, and inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2015. How you doing, Mr. Brown?
Doing good, brother. How are you? Good to be here.
Doing just fine, thank you. And next on that Notre Dame alumni team, Mr. Raghib Ismail, also an All-American in 1990, Heisman Trophy runner-up in 1990, should have won it. Signed a very impressive CFL contract with the Toronto Argonauts in 1991 and began his NFL career with the Oakland Raiders in 1993, then played with the Carolina Panthers in 96, and then with the Cowboys in 1999. How you doing, Rocket?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you for having me. Great to be here. Looking forward to an amazing show.
All right. Nice to have you. Next, we have Mr. Reggie Brooks. Reggie, first of all, first and foremost, I want to thank you for getting this crew together, your alums. But Reggie was also an All-American in 1992, finished fifth in the Heisman Trophy voting in 92, drafted by the Washington Redskins in 1993, and then had a stint with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 96. Mr. Brooks, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. Glad to be here, and just thankful to be on with some Notre Dame greats, but more importantly, some outstanding people and people I call friends and brothers.
Great. And last but not least, Chris, we're glad that you're able to join us. Three-time All-American, Lombardi Award winner in 1990, UPI Lineman of the Year in 1989, Orange Bowl MVP 1991, drafted by the Chicago Bears in 91, and then also had a stint with the Washington Redskins in 1997. Chris, how are you doing today?
Doing wonderful. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, so with no further ado, we'll start our questioning. We're going to turn it over to our lead host, Mr. Sam McNabb. What question do you have for these gentlemen to start off the show?
Thank you, Coach Reed. I appreciate it. Guys, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be a part of the Zoom podcast. One of the things that always come to mind for me, having had the experience as a parent of a player in the NFL, and knowing and meeting so many of you guys throughout the process of the 13 years that Donovan played, I just always have been curious as to guys that have left the game now. What have you done, because you've reached such a great success at every level of playing football in your careers in your life? Now that football is over, how have you adjusted to reality again as a kind of a regular person, but at the same time you're not, because you've got such an image and you've got such a profile that everyone knows about you, and everybody, I'm sure, is getting curious as to what are you doing for your communities and for your family? And you can take it, each one can take that opportunity to answer that.
Who's going first? I
I'm
guess
gonna
we'll
go
go
to
age before beauty. Age before beauty. So I guess I'm up. Look, you know, for me, man, I had an unfortunate thing to happen my second year in the league, but it really prepared me to leave the game mentally. I tore my knee up, you know, the opening game, my second year. And the doctors pretty much showed me, Tim, you know, you may have 3, maybe 5 years on this knee, but by the time you're 27, 28, man, this thing is going to be over. So you need to start preparing yourself to leave the game. And I'm sure he meant financially or whatever, but I think mentally, I started preparing myself to leave the game. I started a business. I had a shoe company that had shoes in Foot Locker and Athletic Express and J.C. Penney's. You know, so I started doing things like that, thinking that my career was going to be over, you know, by the time I was 27, 28. Well, when I got 30 and things were still going well, I realized that I had a little bit more time, but still I always knew every route I ran could be my last route. So I think mentally I was ready to leave the game. However, I never would forget when I left the game, I was working for Fox Sports Net. It was the first year the NFL was doing Thursday night games. It just so happened that the Raiders were playing. They were playing New England, up in New England. It was Randy Moss's first game with the Raiders. And even though I didn't play for the Raiders my first year, when they came out the locker room, I broke out into a cold sweat because my mind could not adjust to the fact that I wasn't on that football field. So I literally, man, they thought I was having a heart attack because I couldn't talk. I literally went into some form of shock. And but you know, since that time, man, you know, I've been able to, you know, do a lot of incredible things in the community. I've been running a mentoring mini camp up in Sacramento for the last this year would have been our 24th year, but we didn't have it this year. We'll pick it back up next year. I've been doing a golf tournament since 1993. Here in Dallas, I have an Ethos Education group that I work with. We go to schools talking to the kids. So you try to do as much as you can possibly do, man, and give back as much as you can. Sometimes it's tough because you don't feel as if these kids are really listening to you. But it's still worth it, man, to get out there and try and make some things happen.
Right.
That's good.
Coach Chick, you're up.
Okay, I thought we was gonna move. I thought someone else was asking. We're gonna go this way.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You know, I
Yeah,
thought we was going to
you are correct.
Yeah.
We want everybody to answer that
I
question.
want everybody. I want to hear the whole story.
You're right. That's correct.
I think Chris should be next because we're going by age. So I'm like young buck, so I go last.
Okay. Chris?
I've been fortunate enough, and I think along with Tim, you realize that this game does not last forever. And the sooner you prepare for the time when you're finished, the better off you're going to be. Oftentimes you see guys who really have some issues mentally, psychologically, with the idea of having to walk away from the game when they're not prepared.
Right.
And I think what really helps is if you understand that, hey, this game is not gonna last forever, then you start making plans. And I think those of us, and obviously the folks here on the podcast, but also in general, the individuals who are the most prepared when that time comes are the most well off.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I was fortunate enough, I had a plan after I finished, and that was to attend law school. So after I retired, I went back to the University of Notre Dame and attended law school. Now, a lot of people thought I was crazy because I retired at the age of like 27 or something like that, or 28.
Mhm.
And who goes to law school after they're done with their football career? I did. I don't know why I did that, but I did. And when my friends were out partying and stuff, I was actually in the book. So it made for a very interesting transition, but that prepared me for later on what I wanted to do. And that was athletic administration. And then eventually now I'm in executive search. So really it's just about having that plan.
That's good. I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Reggie?
Right.
You Reggie? You said Reggie?
No, Rocket, it's on you.
I know.
It's you, Rocket.
Hey man, the host said Reggie. I'm trying to obey authority up in this camp. Hey, so man, for me, I think one of the things that I realized when I realized it, but I didn't know how to verbalize it when I was finally in the league and playing professional ball. And it was like realizing a dream that I had from the time I saw football for the first time when I was 5 years old. When I got what I thought was just going to be the pinnacle of my life and make everything complete, and it didn't. And I was like, man, what do I look for? What am I looking for? So what I realized was that I was really on a search for peace and how to apprehend peace, because regardless of the level of accomplishing your dreams, regardless of being famous, regardless of being able to have a lot of money in the bank, being able to do things and meet people that you never thought you would meet, even to be able to try your hand in business and stuff like that. It was like none of it was able to answer what was going on internally for me. And as I got older, I think when I was about 35 years old, I finally realized that what I was looking for was peace. And so for me, after football and just being, growing up and just being, trying to be a mature man, and then being married and wanting to be a mature husband and then wanting to be a mature father, it was like I realized that my energy, I needed to put it in a direction where I could learn how to apprehend peace, because I realized that peace isn't something that the world wants you to have. So everything in the world that we live in is always trying to steal your peace, steal your joy, steal your whatever that is necessary to make you feel content. And so, man, it's just been that journey for me. And I know the 90% of that was once I understood my relationship with the Lord and being able to just understand that and apprehend it, even when the storms would rise and even when the challenges would come, which they still do every day. We all as men understand this in the world that we live in. One of the things I'm thankful for is being able to meet the challenges that come against me and meet them head on, and feel like even if I'm not equipped, I still have a divine inheritance that can manifest in this natural world in such a way that the end result can still be peace. And trying to make that something that manifests in my house with my wife, my children, and then being able to take that out into my everyday outside of the house is what really has me occupied. So that's that's what I started looking for once all the sports and everything was over.
It's big. That's big.
And I'm sure too, Rocket, you're utilizing that gift that you've gotten and attained from the Lord above by ministering to those in need and those that have a desire to want to do better and be better. So I'm sure you're very assertive in your communities and wherever you go and travel. By just
it's interesting because one of the things that I realized in pursuing peace is if you pursue peace out of order if you pursue peace out of order, it makes you vulnerable. So while a lot of times the world will make, and it's rightfully so, especially in the Black community, we're always looking for. It's interesting. We're probably the only community in the world of here in America, at least, where it's like anybody who has any type of esteem or significance, like there's an expectation that they're going to represent or lead or galvanize the entire community. And one of the things that can be a trap, even though it is packaged in a way that looks really good, is that if you have your own family and you're putting all this energy into doing this here, doing this out here, doing this there, then it can for me it felt like it became a distraction. And I remember, man, one time, and this is going back, and I hope I don't offend any of the people on your show. I remember I was with the Raiders. I just got married, had my little son. He was still in the car seat and the little carrying thing. We were at this Bible study, and this woman that was hosting this Bible study, she was a very wealthy woman, and she was very significant in the Los Angeles schools and stuff like that. And she had us all there, and she was really talking passionately about being a vessel that would be able to change the nutritional needs and the Los Angeles inner city school districts. And I mean, she's talking passionately about this, right? And then as she's talking, and it's probably it might have been about 20, 25 people there, and it sounds really good. And so as she's talking, all of a sudden, I have a vision. So this is like the second time I've had this type of a vision in my life. And I'm all of a sudden in the middle of this field, and on one end of the field, say it was maybe the size, maybe it was about the size of a football field. One end of the field was a podium, a stage, and on the stage was a podium. At the podium was this woman. Behind her was like a little riser, and it had like the planter boxes on top of the riser, and the woman was speaking. Now, I couldn't hear anything she said, but she was speaking in this vision. She was speaking just as passionately to this empty field as she was in this Bible study. And I mean, she was like fire and brimstone, like it looked really good, like, man, this is somebody you need to know. All of a sudden, out of the field grew these stems. And in the planter box that was on the stage behind her grew these stems. On the field, leaves came onto the stems. In the planter box, leaves came onto the stems. And all of a sudden, the stems with the leaves in the field became people. So there were young people. On the planter's box behind her, another stem grew up in the box. All of a sudden, the people start to get to the height where they're now as tall as the stage, and they are looking at this woman intently. And you could tell that whatever she's saying is absolutely affecting their life in what seems like a positive way. On the stage behind her, the stems that now were growing next to the original stems started to sprout, and they started having all kinds of, it was like, it looked really unkept, and it looked like the soil wasn't being kept right, and it was all wild and weedy looking. And on the field, the people started growing, but something was happening. And what was happening was the people were looking at the woman with intent, but then they started looking at the box behind her. And then they were looking at her and looking at the box behind her. And then all of a sudden, they didn't pay any attention to what she was saying. They just kept looking at the box behind her. And then the box behind her became so unkept and so wild and ugly that the people just looked at the box, and then they turned away, they hung their heads down like they were so disappointed, and they vanished in the field, which was vibrant with all these people and life and things that were growing. Boom, instantly became dusty, and wind and stuff was blowing like tumbleweeds. And then I came out of the vision, and I instantly had the interpretation. And a long story short, the interpretation was that woman needed to put the same energy that she wanted to save the Los Angeles Independent School District and the counties and the children and all this really, really, really good stuff. She needed to put that same energy into her family. And it was a great lesson for me, because had it not been for that actual vision, one of the things that I could tell after that vision, it was like I had a different confidence. I was like, okay, God is showing me something and I need to take heed to it. And after that, I remember anytime I would speak somewhere or encourage somebody or do something, the first thing out of people's mouths, and these would be people in high esteem as far as like pastors and stuff like that, like, young man, you have a calling on your life. You need to be a pastor, and you will be disobeying God if you aren't a pastor. And I remember I would hear it, and as soon as they would say it, it would be like, if I didn't have this vision, it would be like, okay, first thing I do is open up a church. My first church, I tell people, is on 7423 Marigold Drive, and it's called the Ismail family. And everything in that is where I put my energy. Now, if I happen to be outside and somebody is looking like they need to be encouraged or something, cool. But my main focus, my main energy as far as giving, the best thing I can do for my community is to make sure that in my house are productive, God-fearing, God-loving, people-loving human beings that can go out into the world and shine their light as they were ordained to from before the foundation of this earth. So that's one of the things that helped me and allowed me not to be moved in a direction that would look good, but at the end would not produce the fruit that God called me to produce.
Gotcha.
Wow, okay.
All right, Mr.
Okay.
Brooks.
Well, following that, nothing. I have no revelations on that level, so I'm not going to try. I know for me, it was, I was raised, you work, and for me, it was great playing football, but I kind of viewed it as a job, and once that job ended, I started looking for another job and kind of immediately start working in IT, which was, I got my degree in management information systems. So it impacted me, but for me, it was just a job. I didn't look at football as this just great thing, because like I said, I was never big into, being seen. I just wanted to go out, play, and have fun. And, maybe that shortened my career because I never looked at football as the job that it is at the NFL level. So I didn't have that perspective. Maybe that would have been beneficial for a longer career. But for me, it was just a space and time to do something that I enjoyed doing. It made other people happy. And, I was able to, I was playing a game. But for me, it was, I was always raised to, you work, you do, you work. And it just, for me, the transition was more about transitioning to be a provider for my family, and just to be a good citizen and work hard in whatever you do. It doesn't matter if it's football or my current state as an administrator for Notre Dame athletics, or in my soon-to-be role as executive director for the Hostess Heroes, it's always about, giving of yourself for others and being a benefit to others, and just work hard and do what I was raised to do. So it wasn't, it was, I won't say it wasn't difficult, because I felt like it was something was taken away from me, and it was a struggle, but it was always in my mind that you got to go work, you got to do something. So I was able to transition a lot, I guess, easier to some degree, because I just knew I had to do something productive, because that's what, how I was raised, is to be a productive member of society. So it allowed me to just kind of, suck it up and push through and get to doing something else, and, transition. But I know in the work that I do with Notre Dame athletics, we have a lot of former players that struggle in that area. And, it also gave me a heart to be of service to those individuals, to help with that transition, to be someone that they can call, and someone that'll listen to them, and also, hey, here's some resources and the things that may be of benefit. And something I gotta, give credit to Rocket and a lot of things. He's always sending me material for former NFL players to get that information out to our former NFL guys, to say, hey, there are resources available to you. And that, to me, was always important, to be able to be a support and a resource for young men that, because again, that, when you're playing professional sports, so you got it made. And that's not the case. It's like, providing that community for the individuals is just as important, so they have an opportunity to, yeah, you can go play this game, but as Tim said, hey, there's, at the time he thought he was going to be out of the game at 27, 28 years old. You're a young man. What do you do with the rest of your life? And, I think that's a headspace that's hard to get in when you've done something all of your life. And I imagine most of us, at the very least, have been playing since high school or middle school, and this is something you train for, and you work at, and you do over time. And when it's gone, it's gone. And you and there's nothing, you're trying to fill a void, a space in yourself. And, Rocky was talking about peace. Chris said went back to law school. The thing that always stuck out to me with the guys that I, looked up to, and, I looked up to each one of you guys, is that they went and they did, but then after they finished, they continued to do, and continue to be an inspiration to young men and young women, to say, hey, these are good people. That's one thing that makes me more proud than anything else, is, following the footsteps of good fathers, good husbands, people that are, like my dad and my mom and dad were, people that I knew, they're not these elitists that are separate. They're human beings. And, that always helped me to kind of make that transition, because I saw people that do it before me, to say, yeah, you're looked at as a star and things like that, but you're still a human being, you're still a person. And, that's that personability and that humanity that each of these men show, helped me to kind of work through the transition as, going professional. But then what do I do with the rest of my life?
That's good. That's good. I like that.
Coach Chick. Coach Chick, we'll turn it over to Coach Chick. Coach Chick, what do you have for these men? That was very good, guys. Very good feedback for our viewers and our listeners.
First and foremost, I really love what you gentlemen are saying, because it truly follows the principles of God. Learn, earn, and return. That's what this is all about. And just given that, I have this question that I'd like to bring to the forefront. Gentlemen, there's a lot of young student athletes that have dreams of becoming a professional athlete, be it in sports and beyond. But they are presently experiencing great hardships. and adversities in their homes, in their communities, all kinds of pressures coming their way, all kinds of angles, which has brought many of them, which I've spoken with on occasions, to contemplate giving up their dreams and giving into their adversities. I asked you gentlemen, we know the road was not always easy when you was going down that road to success. If you would you share with our student athletes, they need to hear this, how you navigate and overcame some hardships and adversities. I know when they hear your story or advice, it will bring about to many of them new hope and a lighter commitment to run the race to a successful end. So, hey, they say one planet, one water, and God give the increase. Come on, give out some increases because they need it. Whoever like to take this question.
Hey, Reggie, let's go young to old.
Well, for me, again, like I said, I will definitely, that definitely resonates with me. And, I have the pleasure of working with some of our current student athletes in their transition of, at least providing them with perspective. In this day and age, it's pretty tough because, with social media, be honest with you, I don't know how these young folks do it because there's no way. I mean, I know, I probably would not have been in school, gotten through school if social media was, in place when I was in school. Because you're young, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna do dumb stuff, and and it's almost like they can't make a mistake. It's I think it's so important to give young people that grace to say and get them to give themselves that grace to say, hey, you're going to make mistakes. That's how you grow. And we're so quick in today's society, people talk about the cancel culture, is that if you make a mistake, then there's no redemption. And I wasn't raised that way. You're like, if you don't give someone that grace to make that mistake and move beyond that, and then uplift them. For me, it's to encourage young people to be okay with making the mistake, as long as you're trying to move forward, as long as you're trying to do better and be better. We have as elder statesmen, if you will, of the game and of society, we have to be there to offer that encouragement, and also to give them, say, hey, we made mistakes, we were not perfect. Yeah, what you see on the highlight film of our careers is great, but there's plenty of times where we fell short, and that's okay, because there was someone there to pick us up. There was someone there to encourage and uplift. And I think that's an area that's been lost in particular sports. It's more so about snippets and highlights than it is about the grind, the perseverance, the struggle. But in that struggle is where you find success. And it's not always, you don't have to be perfect, and getting our young men and women to know that they don't have to be perfect, as long as you continue to strive and keep after your dream, keep fighting for it, and know that you have support, that others are going to fight for you to attain that dream. And when you fall, hey, you got a community here that's going to support you and lift you up, instead of, you see, if somebody makes a mistake, people are quick to cut them off. We can't do that. We cannot cut each other off when one of us falls. We got to continue to uplift these young brothers and sisters to say, hey, you can make a mistake, but you got a family here that's going to be there to lift you up and encourage you to continue forward. So the more we can, uplift and encourage this next generation, and let them know that it's okay to make mistakes and that we'll work through this with you. That's when when you're fearless and you have that ability to say, okay, I might fall, but I won't be down and out, because there's too many people around that's not going to allow me to go by the wayside.
That's good. That's good.
Just keep
Thank you,
going.
man.
Hey, Next on the mic is myself, and man, let me tell you something. My mind right now, there's so many things that's going on in my mind right now. Just like, and I'm trying to keep it very simple and concise. So, man, well, the first thing I would say is to any young people listening and any people listening, period, but the world is treacherous, but life is beautiful. Okay? So this world that we live in is treacherous. It is unforgiving. It wants to cancel you. It wants to kill you. It wants to steal from you. It wants to destroy you. That's the world that we live in. But life has the answer, the remedy, and the solution for everything that you will ever face, period. The key is you have to learn how to tap into that. And I'm 51 years old now, and one of the things that I've learned, and there's science and there's supernatural divine reality behind this, that you tap into what rightfully belongs to you, answers, remedies, and solutions, by learning how to expect that those answers, remedies, and solutions will show up when you need them, that you'll recognize them when you need to, that you'll receive them when you need to, in spite of what the reality around you is saying to the contrary. The reason I say expect is how you tap in, is it's easy to ask yourself a question internally. Hey man, what do I expect to happen? And if your answer internally is, man, it's not going to be good, it's not going to turn out the way it's supposed to, it's not going to, then I challenge you in that moment when you feel like that's the case, I challenge you to tap into your divine inheritance and simply ask the Most High God to help you to believe, to expect, because your expectations and your beliefs, same thing. And I heard somewhere that the way human beings are designed, whatever we truly believe, it can become reality. So when you find yourself in that place, in order to tap into what's greater, start asking yourself, what do I expect to happen? Start identifying what your true expectations are, your true beliefs, because we can say something on the outside, hey man, just because we want to look good in front of the people around us, or we want to seem like we have it all together. Man, that internal voice, what do I believe? What do I expect to happen? If that says, nah, I don't know, then tap into a higher power. And that higher power, the Most High God, I'm telling you, all my life, man, even when I didn't know I was tapping into it, even when I didn't have an inkling, when I expected somehow, some way, for it to turn out the way it's supposed to, here comes a conversation. Here comes a coach. Here comes an opportunity. Man, I'm just telling you, please, please tap into your expectation. And whenever they say no, and you need a yes,
Come on.
let's go. Believe, tap into it. Tap in. You have that as your inheritance. You have that. All of you, you have that. I'm telling you, how I found out about this was what I thought was a deathbed experience for me. It was probably about 5 years ago now, 6 years ago, and I wasn't feeling too hot. And I was upstairs in my room, in my bed, on a bed, and house full of children, nieces and nephews, everybody over here for the summer. And I literally thought I was getting ready to die. Like I felt like energy and vitality was leaving my body. And I was just like, man, I learned how to come to peace with that. I was in the bed and man, I remember closing my eyes for what I thought was the last time. All of a sudden, my eyes wake up again the next morning. I still feel the same way, but there was a voice that came from the inside of me and it said this. It said, Raghib, there's an answer, a remedy, and a solution for everything. Then it said it again, Raghib, there's an answer, a remedy, and a solution for everything. What did that do? That did for me what I'm trying to get you to understand. It helped me to change my expectations. It helped me that even though I still felt the same, it helped me to say to myself, man, I never heard, man, I'm getting out of here some way. I don't know how, I don't know when, but it gave me something to hold on to while the storm was still there, while it was still dark on the inside, while hope was trying to leave me. I grabbed the heart and said, don't leave. Stay right here. Somehow, some way. I tapped in, my expectations changed. You can reprogram what you believe, but you have to first identify what you truly believe. I truly believed I was going to die. And then all of a sudden, the Most High God spoke from the inside and said, hey, I don't care how you're feeling. Death is not imminent. And this is what you need to expect, that there's an answer, a remedy, and a solution, not for some things, not for things that need money, not for things that need connections in a network, not for things that need you to be at the right school, for everything. All you gotta do is tap in. And I'm on my bed, my expectations change. I'm here today telling you what I now implement every day in my life. So tap into this, and I'm telling you, your light will always shine. Answers, remedies, and solutions will always find their way to you.
All right, all right.
Good
Good work.
stuff.
Good work.
All right, Chris, your turn.
Well, it's obviously going to be hard trying to go after that. So sum it up. However, much like Reggie and Rocket talked about, the idea of kind of not only self-awareness, but the ability to kind of understand what your circumstances are and being able to realize that. And if it's a challenging situation, find ways to kind of overcome that adverse situation. And really kind of talk about what Rocky was talking about. It's up to you. Depending on the circumstances, you may live in a jacked up neighborhood like I did as a kid, or you may live in a really nice neighborhood. I mean, everybody has challenges, but the idea is to kind of assess what your situation is and seek out help. Don't be afraid to ask. One of the most successful persons I've ever met in my life, multi-million-dollar person, talked about the smartest thing anybody ever told him was to ask questions and find someone that you're able to ask questions to, or find someone that could possibly be a mentor for you and spend time with that person. Now, that individual doesn't have to be in the same vocation you're looking into, but they can assist and help with ideas, with ways to manage. And that's really what a lot of young people, I think, suffer, is that they're afraid to ask questions. And when you're able to find individuals that will listen, that will help. Now, the first person may not listen, second person may not listen, but hopefully you can find someone that'll give you an opportunity to kind of give you their ear and allow you to learn from them. And unfortunately, I had to do that kind of later in life when I got to college, because I really didn't have a lot of folks in my neighborhood that would actually I could look up to, except for my mom. But when I was able to find them, I identified with those people, and I was able to ask questions, and I wasn't afraid.
Okay. All right, Tiim.
Well, I don't know if I want to go last again. I tell you that. That's for sure. Hey, I think for me, I do this kind of stuff all the time. I'm always talking to kids, and one of the things that I have realized over the years is most of these kids who are troubled, they've all gone through something. There's been some experience in their life that has caused them to be on the edge, or all the way on the bad side, or whatever. I was potentially one of those kids. I had an incident with my dad when I was 13 years old. It was the summer before I turned 14, going into high school, and it literally changed my life. My dad was a drinker at the time. He was a hardworking man, worked construction all day, but he partied just as hard at night. So he came home and he owned a nightclub, the Chandelight, right down there on Dolphin Road. It's still there. And man, he came home a little intoxicated one night, thought I was coming after him, and threatened to take my life. And I was really confused, man, because my dad and I had a great relationship, and but it changed everything that we knew about each other at that particular time. So I never saw my dad at any of my high school football games. Now I heard afterwards that he was there, but he never would let me see him. My dad never came to any of my college football games. And even though we had reconciled, halfway through my NFL career, early in my NFL career, he only came to one or two of my NFL games. That being said, what I realized was that, my dad was doing the best he could do and not the best he should be doing. And once I realized that, and in one of those moments when you grow up in church, like I grew up in church, brother, you have these moments all the time. And literally, coming home, I made my third Pro Bowl. I was 25 years old. We still had this little thing going back and forth. I had bought this brother a house. I had bought this brother a new car. I had bought. And I'm wondering what's going on. Ain't nothing getting better. But on the plane ride home, what dropped in my spirit was, your dad is doing the best he can do, not the best he should be doing. And with that, I went to him and asked him to forgive me, for whatever had happened 12 years ago. Let's go on with our lives. And because I told him I'm 25 years old, but I need you in my life. And thankfully, for the next 20 years of his life before he passed away, we had an incredible relationship. I mean, that's the story I try and tell these kids because, that was something, it was tough, but my lifeline at that particular time, of course, I had a great mom, I had church, I had all that, but sports was my out. It was a thing that I could go and do. And everything I did was try, it was like that old step and fetch it. I would present it back to my dad, hey, Dad, is this good enough for you? Is this good enough for you? And nothing was good enough. I mean, being vice president of my senior class, sports editor of the newspaper, all these things, none of those were good enough for him. And, but I had a lifeline. Again, my lifeline was sports, but also, when I got to high school, my freshman year, after 1 week of class, I had a teacher to come up to me and say, the English teacher, and say, you don't belong in my class. You need to be in honors English. And she marched me down to my counselor and changed all of my classes from regular classes to under classes. And by her doing that, it made me eligible 4 years later to be able to get a scholarship for the University of Notre Dame.
All right.
But I could have very easily said, oh, no, I don't want that. No, I'd rather be in these classes, but taking on that opportunity. And, and that's what, I try and get over to these kids. I mean, somebody is looking out for you. Somebody is giving you that lifeline. You just have to take that lifeline. And if you don't take the lifeline, you're going to regret it. I mean, you listen to these kids' stories, mama, daddy, sister, brother. There's always an uncle story. There's always a bad uncle story in these kids' lives. And, I get it. I understand. But at the same time, at the end of my ordeal, when I was 13 years old, I was still alive. To me, that meant the message was not for, the lesson was not for me. It was for somebody else. I was just going to be the messenger. And that's what I have tried to do over the years, is try and let kids know, if you go through something that is traumatic. My wife went through something when she was a young girl that she didn't want to talk about for years. It took me 10 years of being married to her to get her over the stigma of Black folks don't talk about stuff, and let's go and help some people. And I think that's what people have to know. If God leaves you here after whatever you go through, then you're here for a reason. You're here because he believes you're strong enough that you can go and make something happen. And I think that's what kids have to understand. I know it's tough when you don't have mama that's doing right, or daddy's not doing right, or that crazy uncle that's not doing right. But if you're still here, then I think he has you here because he believes that you're going to be a messenger for him.
All right. Excellent insight.
Good stuff.
All right, back to you, Reed.
We'll turn it over now to Kenneth. Kenneth, what's your question for these men?
Okay, y'all gonna see my screen go black for a second. I gotta transfer over to my question to make sure I get it right. But this thing won't, you still ready to hear me though?
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay. For 1 second, he's coming back. Okay.
So hey guys, many athletes here that believe that they are elite athletes, and some do elevate to that level, but many don't elevate to that level. Given your success, what are some of the attributes and characteristics do you think it takes to become an elite athlete on and off the field?
Raghib man.
Okay. From my experience, if you already have the ability,
I pick the best pick. Drafted Trey Lance, man. That's the best one.
That's somebody.
Mute yourself.
Mute yourself. Mute yourself. Mute yourself, Mike. Money Mike, mute yourself.
My apologies, guys.
Okay.
Leave that draft alone, bro.
Money Mike, making money.
Okay, right.
Money Mike got 5 on it. All right.
Hey, don't beat me up too bad, fellas. We just drafted Trey Lance, so we in good shape here. We gonna be okay.
Oh, Chicago?
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry, guys. Let me mute though.
Go ahead, Raghib.
What was I saying? Oh, about an athlete, elite athlete,
Yeah,
right?
elite athletes, yeah. What takes to become an elite
And I
athlete?
think my train of thought was going to go, from my experience, if you have the ability and are willing to use it, the most important thing is the instruction you receive. I use the example, man, I was a mediocre pro receiver for 7 years until I got an offensive coordinator that came from a system that all he said to me in one mini camp, he came from the Green Bay Packers. I think he was in that because Sterling Sharp and all of them came. Like, it's no mistake when certain teams consistently always have a good receiver or always have a good quarterback. Like, that's a high level guy in the NFL. And I just remember one day at the mini camp, we were running a route and he was complimenting another receiver. And he said, the verbatim, he said, "That's it. 6 and 2, 6 and 2. And I was like, what the heck is 6 and 2? I went up to him and he said, 6 steps in your route, 2 to get out. And I was like, well, wait a minute. I didn't think you could count steps after a slant, usually a 3-step slant. And that's the only time I ever heard any coach tell me you can count your steps. And for me, it unlocked everything that I needed. just in that one thing. And just to tell you how important coaching is, my junior year at the NCAA Indoor Championships in Indianapolis, I was in the finals for I think it was the 55 meters at the time. And I'm racing against these guys are like elite world-class sprinters, right? And I remember we're in the finals. I was a top seed in all the prelims and stuff, getting my blocks, and I didn't feel right. Like I was like, something is not right. And I end up, because I was positioned in the wrong way, I didn't know it. It was just a small little detail. I got out the blocks with everybody else. The part of my race that made me a successful sprinter was my start. So I could get 5 yards in front of the whole pack, and by the time they're trying to catch up, the race is over. Well, I ended up coming in second by like a hair on my chin. And afterwards, my brother was like, what happened? I was like, man, I didn't feel right. And my brother was like, well, how come you didn't raise your hand? I was like, wait, what? He said, yeah, man, whenever our coaches tell us that all the time. Whenever you're in the blocks and you don't feel comfortable, raise your hand. The starter's going to get you up. You make the adjustment, and now you're good. Well, it turns out that Notre Dame is a distance school. We weren't as proficient with sprinters as other schools were. So that was a detail I didn't even have in my artillery case, because we were a distance school. It was just, hey, Rocket, I would just get in the blocks and beat everybody. I hadn't lost a race in like 3 years. And then the last race of my doggone career was because I didn't have the instruction that was necessary to help me maximize my potential. So I feel like if you have as an elite athlete, if you show you have the ability and you have a willingness to use it, the next thing, that's the most important thing to me, is the instruction you receive, the coaching you receive. That's what I would add to.
Good point. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Z.
Who we get?
Kenneth, that was a great question.
Thank you. Good to see
Um,
Chicago man on here tonight too.
Who's up next?
about
Chris is up.
Chris got it.
Okay.
when you think about the level of elite athletes, or just athletes in general, it's about making that sacrifice. Oftentimes you hear, obviously everyone on this call are former teammates who I've had the pleasure to play with. Each one of them were great in their own right, but they'll be the first to tell you that they weren't great because they made a catch and won the game or ran a ball. In order for them to accomplish that, they had to do well in practice. And you always hear about that adage about Michael Jordan being this great player, but he was even a harder practice player and demanded so much more from his teammates during practice. And so every time I think about an athlete trying to make that that next step to be good, you have to look at what you're doing. And it's about sacrifices. So if your teammates or if other people are doing things that may not be advantageous to what you need to do to accomplish your goal, then you need to walk away. So, for example, before my senior year in high school, every summer I worked for the city of Chicago. They had these jobs where you got paid like minimum wage. And for me, I was able to earn that money. I think it was like a couple $1,000s, like $1,500 or something like that. And I would give that to my mom so we could kind of survive during that year. And my high school coach said to my mom that, hey, your son has an opportunity to earn a college scholarship, but he needs to spend this summer before my senior year, working out, doing the things that will allow him that opportunity. So my mom and I had a long talk, and she allowed me to not to work. Now, that was going to be $2,000, $1,500 that we weren't going to have throughout the year to pay for rent, electricity, food, everything else. But she kind of saw the opportunity that I had. And so I spent that summer working out, and I was by no means an elite athlete, but I really believe that summer allowed me to really be in a position to earn a scholarship. And it didn't have to be at Notre Dame. It could have been anywhere, but my mom was not in a situation to afford to pay for me to go to college. So it's about the sacrifices that you make. Now, that was an extreme sacrifice. I mean, you're talking about doing reps, you're talking about staying after practice. You're talking about giving 100% in practice. I mean, I love it because, I mean, I enjoyed the hell out of practice because that was my time to get better. And a lot of people don't necessarily feel that way. But in order to be successful, you have to work at it. And I'm going to say a word that everybody that Rocket, Tiim, and Reggie are going to understand, but it's fundamentals. And people hate doing fundamentals, right? Because that takes you back to literally back to how you carry a ball, to how you take a step. But those are important factors in order to be successful. And so what a lot of people don't think about, they think about just that they can survive on athletic ability alone. And that'll take you far, but it won't give you that opportunity to be successful all the time. If you practice those fundamentals, if you take care of the little things, you'll have an opportunity to be successful.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, I was very fortunate, man. You know, my high school football team, we were 425-1. At Notre Dame, we got off to a rough start, ended a lot better last couple of years when Coach came in there. But when I got to the league, man, practicing with Howie Long, I mean, wow, Marcus Allen. I mean, it was really incredible. Bo came in, he was playing baseball at the time, so he didn't come into week 6 and 7. But I tell people all the time, there are two guys who I thought were better athletes on the football field than me. One was Bo Jackson, and I was probably wrong. It probably was 1,000, but I mean, it's what I tell people that I played with. And the other is Rocket. Those are the two guys that I played with that I said some of the things they do, I couldn't do. I absolutely couldn't do. But when you're playing with guys like Marcus and Howie, my last year in the league, man, I got a chance to play with Derek Brooks. You see why these guys are great, man. They're great because they give everything they have. They sacrifice everything they have on the football field. They're dedicated to everything football at that time. They do incredible things off the field, but when they're on the football field, they're totally focused on that. I had the opportunity for 3 years, man, to play with Jerry Rice. I know Jerry's a little bit of a showboater. He does a lot of stuff for showboating, but this is one of the hardest working men I ever seen in my life, and there were things he did during practice, after practice, and I just said, that's not me, so I'm not going to try and follow him. But it was incredible to see him at 38, 39, 40 years old, still doing some of the things that he was doing, I mean, his regiment. So, but I just think this day and time, if you're going to be a great athlete, they're doing things a lot different now in high school. You got to choose a sport. You can't be multi-sport guys anymore. I think that really burns guys out, but it is what it is. But I think you have to totally dedicate yourself to what you want to be, and be the best that you can. When I came into the league, I didn't know if I can be a great receiver. I did think I could be a great punt return, kick return. And one of the reasons why we tried to get to the Raiders after Atlanta at the first pick said they didn't want me, they were going to go with Andre Bruce, we didn't want to go to Cincinnati, Detroit, Tampa Bay, and I forget who the other team was. I think that was it. We wanted to get to the Raiders because the Raiders gave me an opportunity to learn how to play the game first, because I was in a wishbone my last year at Notre Dame, so I didn't think I could go and transition into being that starting receiver right away. But James Lofton, another guy who taught me how to play the game at the receiver position. So these guys, man, dedicate themselves to the game, and that's why they're in the Hall of Fame. That's why they're great. And you got lucky, right? You didn't have the injuries, you didn't have some of those things. I tell people all the time, which is the truth, that in my 16 years of working out in the off season, I can probably count on one hand the days I missed in 16 years, because nothing was more important during that day than for me to get my workout in, because that was my job. That's who I was. That's what, at that particular time, that's what I was doing for a living. And whether I had a company, and I did have a company, they knew I was going to get to the office by 10:30, 11 o'clock every day. And I think you have to dedicate yourself if you really want to be great. A lot of these kids are so talented that they don't feel as if they have to work. But when you look at guys like Rocket, who have great talent, but they still work. You look at guys like Bo Jackson, who had great talent, but they still work, and Howie Long and all these other guys, you're talented, yes, but the work is really what's going to make you, it's going to differentiate you from other players.
That's good.
That's great, guys. Well,
we get Reggie.
I'll be real
Reggie.
quick.
okay, yeah.
Reggie. Okay, Reggie.
Dedication, opportunity, and as Tim and Rocket and Chris says, the commitment to do things at a high level consistently. So you have to be disciplined. You have to, and you need that opportunity, be given an opportunity, but you also, it is imperative that you have that discipline and that dedication to what you say you want to do. You're gonna, and it's not always, and it's not gonna be easy. Are you willing to persevere? So the discipline, the opportunity, and then the dedication is key to having any success and to be a high level athlete.
All right.
Good
All right,
work.
thank you, everybody, for answering that question.
Hey,
Good work. Good work.
Read
Well-
one question. Read real quick, and I'll just say this to Chris Zorich. Chris Zorich, what you don't know, I was the defensive coordinator for Simeon when you was a senior. And your hard work over the summer, it paid off because you did a job on Simeon. I remember that. I wanted to let you know, man.
Yeah, we
Thank
was
you
talking
very
about you
much.
wasn't doing. Coach,
out.
I'm right there with you. We was talking about you wasn't doing lead athlete. I don't remember that. I remember kicking our butt.
That's
No,
right. So I just wanted to, I had to let that. wanted to let you
I
know that.
appreciate that,
Yeah.
but I think the final score when y'all beat us was like 33-0 or something like that. I'm just saying.
See,
I'm
but you
just saying.
forget, you forgot, Chris. 1 year y'all beat us.
Yeah,
You
right,
actually beat
right,
us,
right.
and I remember that. So
Right.
I don't forget. I don't forget them whoopings I took.
Right, you don't
I
forget losses.
gave it
I
to
forget a win, but I ain't gonna forget a loss.
I just wanted to share that with you. That hard work paid off. Back to you, Coach Reed. Back to you, Coach Reed.
Hey, guys, this has been great. You answered my question, and really, in how you guys, you talked about the self-esteem, perseverance, finding self. I hope that our listeners have had an opportunity to really engage in what you guys have given them. You guys played at an elite level. You went to one of the most storied colleges in the country. And I just want to thank you. My question simply was, if you had one thing that you wanted to give to our listeners, those who are making a decision about going to a college, because obviously you guys went to one of the most prestigious colleges in the country. You have one thing that you can give to a student athlete or just a student right now about making a decision going to a college, what would that one thing be? Now I'll start with Reggie. You probably do this all the time, Reggie. So what would it be, Reggie?
Well, the biggest thing I tell, and I get to talk to kids a lot, the recruits that come in, students that come in, do not pick an institution based on the perception of what you think it is. You're going into a community. It's not just you're going to a Stanford, a Notre Dame, a Howard. You have these perceptions of these institutions. It's important that you understand and get to know who you are and where you can be most successful. And you can go to any institution in the country, that's great, but how will you adapt to the community that is that institution? And that's both within the college or university itself, but also the community where it is. For me, I'm not a big city guy, so I didn't come from a big city, so I didn't really want to go, because I didn't even know where Notre Dame was originally. And when they recruited my brother, I had no idea. That was just, I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I didn't know anything but Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri. It was very regional. But the thing that I didn't do, I didn't understand the community that was Notre Dame. And I struggled in that regard. So it is important that you know the community that you're going into, and understand that, you can't just isolate yourself to say, well, hey, I'm going to this institution because they have this major, they provide X, Y, and Z, because every institution is bigger than just the place, is bigger than just that location. Understanding what's going on around the community, what are the things, what is the culture of a community that you're going into. Because I was not ready for I grew up in a very segregated city in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I was in shock when I saw so many white people. When like I said, we came in weeks before the student body came in, and the majority of the team when I got there was predominantly Black. So I'm like, oh, this is cool. I can rock with this. This is the community I'm comfortable with. Dude, when the student body start moving in, and we had to move out of the summer dorm into our main dorm, I was like, I need to go. I can't do this. So I'm serious. So I stress heavily, know the community that you're going into, because it's not just the academic side of things or the athletic side of things that you're going to have to deal with. It's the culture of the place that is important to get to know that. So I would say, understand the culture of a community that you're going into when you're making that decision.
Yeah, Mr. Brown, what would you say?
Yeah, I think for me, man, growing up here in Texas, it was a hotbed of college football at the time, the Southwest Conference. And, you had all these opportunities. I ended up taking my my official trip. So I went to Oklahoma, Nebraska, and believe it or not, at that time, Iowa had a pretty hot team. Chip Long, I think that was his name, quarterback. And my unofficial was Oklahoma and SMU. My officials were Notre Dame, Nebraska, and Iowa. And for me, man, it was really simple. I visited SMU. I visited the players. Eric Dickerson came back and talked to me. Went to Oklahoma. Had a good time there, I guess. Went to Nebraska. Mike Rozier had just won the Heisman. Irvin Fryer was his classmate. Hung out with those guys. Went to Iowa. But I kept coming home saying, I don't know. It doesn't feel right. And I can tell you, I got to Notre Dame January 20th, 1984, in the middle of a blizzard. It probably was 5 feet of snow on the ground. It was still coming down. Two things happened to me. When I made that turn and I saw that Golden Dome, something hit me in the bottom of my stomach. But the guy who met me at the Morris Inn is a guy named Alvin Miller. And Alvin at that time was a hot thing. He was a 6'4" receiver, 230 pounds, ran a 4.340, and he was supposed to be turning the college scene up. Unfortunately, he got hurt, and it ended his career. Had a try with Buffalo, but didn't work. But that is a guy I met January 20th, 1984, and I probably still talk to him, if not every day, definitely every other day, because he was my guy. He was a guy that I wanted to be around, not just for 4 years, but I felt like this guy I could be around for the rest of my life, and we're proving that right now. I mean, I talked to him for almost 2 hours a day, so I mean, when you're around people like that, to me, it wasn't about Notre Dame, because I had no clue about Notre Dame either. And being that was so far away from home, I didn't want to go. But when I met Alvin Miller, it changed my mind, because I knew I can come to that place and be comfortable with at least one guy, and so obviously there were many reasons to go to the University of Notre Dame, but the people that you're going to be around are probably people you're going to know for the rest of your life. And you want them to be people that you want to be proud of when you're around them, and vice versa. So, that would be my advice. Look for other things than the football team and all that kind of stuff. Look at the people you're going to have to live with, man, because if you think you're going to change them, it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? And I knew I couldn't change the people at Oklahoma or Nebraska, Iowa, SMU, but at Notre Dame, I didn't feel like I had to change anybody.
All right.
Very good. Raghib?
Man, first thing I would say, if you have the opportunity, go to Notre Dame, bam, then. but one thing that that's a pretty deep question for me. But I would, if there are young people that are watching now, tap into. Okay, so there's an expression where people say, "Man, I should have listened to my first mind." And I've not met many people who have not had that same experience. And I believe that our first mind, our heart, is one of the tools that we have in this earth that helps to guide us. And what I would say to any young person that's watching, learn how to start being intentional about listening to your first mind and understanding how that operates in your life and the patterns that it brings and the fruit that it produces. So if it produces good fruit and you're able to, oh, that worked out. Okay, remember how you felt. Remember what was guiding in that instance. And then if it felt good and it, you almost got killed, like, hey, that ain't good. We got to stay away from that one. Like, be able to identify that, so that when you now are going to these colleges and universities and being inundated with all types of, some of it is propaganda, a lot of it is fluff. It's interesting. I was watching a documentary and they were talking about this college scam that went on not too long ago. And the US News and World Report said that they would, I think they started like somewhere in the 80s, they would release every year their top colleges and universities. And they would have a list, and it was a big deal. And I remember the guy who said, or who was in charge of the list, he said that the only measurement that they used for a college or university to be on the list was prestige. And I thought, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because when you think of certain universities, like it's prestigious, it sounds significant. It sounds like it's something that is meaningful. And I come to find out that the word prestige, the root word for that word, it actually comes from a word that means to deceive. It's deceit. And when he said that, I was like, wow, it makes so much sense. And the reason I brought that story up was to say, Don't, just because something is prestigious, man, doesn't mean it's right. And for you to tap in now to your first mind and being intentional about listening to your first mind is vital, so that when it's time to make that decision, it's regardless of the noise and all of the flashing and whistles and the gifts and all the prestigious things, man, in your heart, you'll know how to proceed. And I'm going to say it's going to be an absolute blessing for you and yours for years to come if you can tap into that now.
Good point. Like that.
Chris. All right, big Chris.
Dr. Reed, I'm going to take a little different perspective.
Okay.
And when you talk about the opportunity to earn a scholarship, to have someone pay for your education, that's huge.
Yeah.
And fortunately, you're talking to 4 individuals that had an opportunity to go on to the next level. But there are thousands, hundreds of thousands that don't. And oftentimes, and again, the parents aren't helping, everybody thinks they can just jump to the NFL, right? They can go to the best school and go to the NFL. Chances are you're not going to go, okay? Honestly. So in that regard, pick a school. If you have this opportunity, pick a school that's going to best fit you and what you want to do 10, 15, 20, 40 years down the line. Because what if you don't make it, right? So you want to go to a school that you think is going to be a great opportunity for you to propel you to the NFL. Well, again, there are hundreds of thousands. For every 4 people that are on this podcast right now, there are 400,000 kids that did not make it to the next level. And so if you have that opportunity to earn a college scholarship, make sure you're choosing it for the right reasons. And I would hope that it would be education. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're all falling back on, right? I mean, we're not playing anymore. I can't remember the last time I held a football in my hand, but the idea that you're making a decision for the next 10, 20, 30 years down the line is extremely important. So when you are evaluating schools or institutions, colleges, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons.
Good point. I like that.
Yeah. Well, listen, guys, this has been outstanding. We thank you guys so much for your time. You've given us and our listeners so much information. Kudos to you guys. We love what you're doing, what you did on the field. We all had an opportunity to see you. But more importantly, I love what you guys are doing off of the field. And this has been great. I appreciate it. Reggie, I appreciate you hooking these guys up. And it's been great to talk to your other alums as well. And so we want to thank you guys. Sam, I'll let you have some quick closing words as we end the Zoom podcast. Sam?
Well, thank you, Coach. Again, guys, this has been a very informative podcast for us. And we do hope that, because we're going to put this out on our Facebook page as well as YouTube for our viewers and our listeners and our supporters to know and see what kind of things we're doing. And so when you can offer insight and information like you guys have generated tonight, you can't do anything but make everything great for us. So again, kudos to each and every one of you guys for taking time out of your busy schedule and allowing us to ask you questions just to kind of get an idea of what's going on in your lives and life after football. But I commend each and every one of you guys because, I've always been a sports enthusiast. I did a little coaching here or there, a little playing here or there, but never to the level of you guys. But I respect everything that you guys have had to go through to get to where you are. And I'm so inclined to just say at this stage, it's a tremendous blessing that you guys didn't squander your opportunity after having the success that you've had and not do anything to be an inspiration to others around you whether you know it or not, and you talk to these young people, they're listening. They hear you. They may not seem to respond to you right away, but they will eventually, the light bulb will come on again, and what you said to them will come back to them. So we thank you guys, as always, for being part of it, and we wish you the best. We want you to know that we're doing this kind of on a semi-regular basis, but we welcome you guys to come back and join us anytime you feel like you have something you want to share with us. So with that in mind, I'll turn it back over to Coach Reed to let you formally just dismiss the program.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, our theme here at the Chicago Coaches Corner podcast is, we're not about box scores, we're about life scores. And as well as you guys know, dream work makes the team work. Appreciate having you guys. God bless you. And join us anytime. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you guys. Appreciate
God
you.
bless everybody. Stay
Good to
safe,
see you,
y'all.
Mr. McNabb.
God bless
Take
you.
care.
Hey, Chris,
All
what
right.
type of motorcycle is that behind you?
Thank you.
All right. God bless you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Rest in peace.
All right.